Okay, so we are going to proceed. I've got Angelique with me from our office. At this time, I know I've got a few more girls that are going to pop in as well. So we're happy to present some information, I always call it, um, with respect to the agreements of purchase and sale and stuff. We're going to go through a few different topics here, a few tips, a few comments. Some of them are in no way related to your firm and you guys. It's always great to deal with KW because you are always on top of what you're doing. So don't take any offense to anything that we bring up here because it might have been once that something happened and it just kind of embedded in my mind that, hey, here's a tip I can add in. So we are to begin with, I'm going to give you a little tip for anyone who hasn't yet set up their Google contact information. One of the things we find if we're looking for a realtor is what's their phone number, what's their email, how do I find them, what firm are they with? So if you go to Google, you can log yourself in and you can set up your little profile on the side that tells me everything basically, your email, your phone number, your firm that you're working with now. And it's just kind of quick for us to get in touch with you. The other suggestion we usually note is do an automatic signature for the bottom of your page that indicates all that information as well. We do that on our emails just so people find it easier to get in touch with us. Totally just a tip, totally up to you whether you do that or not. I'll leave that with you guys. And so agreements of purchase and sale are the big thing that we're going to talk about today. And so when it comes to what we're getting and why we need it, so first of all, I usually get or suggest or like it when we get all documents in. That would be the agreement of purchase and sale, the amendments, the counter offers, the listing cut, the property disclosure statement. That way we're as informed as the clients are and you guys, so we're all on the same page operating, moving the deal forward. And we can, not that we want to pick up things to make issues, we just want to be able to highlight maybe something to a client that, especially a new buyer, that they're aware of going forward. One of the things that we talk about sometimes too is, and what's very important for us and you guys is the due diligence dates. And especially on the client's ends is to meet these dates. So what we do is we tell clients, if you can't meet this date, you need to call your realtor right away and let them know you need an extension, and hopefully an extension is granted. Sometimes it does give opportunity for someone to back away from the deal. There's a whole host of things that can happen here, but we usually like to see that the dates coincide with the agreement in terms of that the deposit is paid at the right time as opposed to um, the financing clauses, the water tests, the surveys, the everything that's covered that can possibly go wrong. The new one that we're noticing now is tax billing. Copies of tax bills. We're needing them more and more now for the lenders. A lot of people now are dealing with mortgage brokers and they're dealing with your how do I say, I think unconventional lenders, which would mostly be conventional, I'm going to call like Royal Bank, Scotiabank. Some of them now are going through a broker who are dealing with non-conventional, which would be like the First Nationals, Manulife. There's a whole host of names. We're even seeing new names that we've not seen before, and that happens pretty much every year. So it's not an alarm. But that's a new one to include in there. So we do like to see clients take a water test, no matter whether they want to waive it or not. I've actually more or less convinced people to do a water test and to come back with a fecal or a coliform count, and quite a high count. So we want to make sure people are safe in terms of using their water. So that's very important. And not to say that's more important than anything else, because we've also got financing in there. The lawyer review date should coincide as well, so that the due diligence is pretty much expired at the same time or maybe a little bit later so that if there's something that isn't done, we've got the ability. Very seldom do we call on the lawyer review clause, but it is an option that sometimes we will come forward with to maybe fine tune something or add something in that no one knew about earlier. The reason that due diligence dates are important for us, of course, are to ensure our client meets those dates. And the reason that they're important for you guys is that the dates are met and the clients aren't sort of sitting back going, nobody told me, which once you sign the agreement, you're told, so that everybody's aware. Client contact information, emails and phone number. I know Jen it always sends me over that, and it's very helpful because sometimes it's a returning client, sometimes it's a new client who we haven't met yet. So that's really important. The name of the other lawyer, I know you guys don't normally get right off the hop when you've signed the agreement and you send it to us, but in the agreement, it's up to us to send on a vendor file, the legal description, the legal description to the other lawyer for due diligence dates to ensure that we're not late, and we're not providing that information. So that's one that's highly important to get as soon as we can. And I know you guys are waiting for the other realtor to let you know. If we miss some of those dates, then it falls back on either us if we know, or if we haven't been told, it would fall back on you guys. And we don't want to see anyone having a client upset with them. There are also benefits and burdens that we have to advise the other side of, as well as the legal description. Clause wording, that's something that I usually say to people, if you're not sure what to put in there, just give us a call and we'll kind of help you form the clause as well. A lot of times we're dealing with holdbacks or people not having work done in time for closing, or just covering off that it is done. And we want to ensure that it's done by a qualified contractor. The time period is listed, the amount of the holdback is listed, and that amount should be way more than what's required to do the work in case it's not done, that we can hold back on closing, and the paid receipts from the vendor at the time, or hopefully before closing, that the work is done. And again, feel free to call us. I've even have real agents that call me when I'm not working on a deal just to say, hey, does this sound right? And we're more than happy to help. So that in itself is the importance of us getting all of the documents under the agreement, and we will then take our information to the other lawyer, especially on a vendor deal. I found that I know it wasn't with you guys. I know I had a realtor not that long ago. I didn't get the agreement until the day before closing. I didn't get the name of the other lawyer before closing. I knew I had a closing from the client, but that left everybody reeling at the last minute, but also not being able to have lawyer review. Some of the due diligence dates weren't met and whatnot. So occasionally that does happen, and it's unfortunate. But we like to kind of just get everything. And of course, especially during COVID, we always go back to COVID. Sometimes the market is busier than others, so it's hard sometimes to keep up to date on where everything is at. That's part of our job. We do diligence, we date everything. We've got calendars, we diarize dates. I even calendarize my due diligence dates, my closing dates, follow-up dates, everything that we can, just as a sort of an idea of what we're doing on our end so that we're not missing things. I copy the clients in that so that they're aware that, hey, today's due diligence date, do I have my stuff done? Do I need to get an extension? And we'll even diarize the other side's dates for our clients as well, so that they know whether they need to follow up with us or ask any questions, or did they get the information. So in some cases, agreements can be void if information isn't provided. We like to take the view that we can extend these things, and that way we're not left, with a deal getting canceled that we don't want to cancel it. We just want to extend it. So some other things that I just want to mention. Um, in terms of objections, and unfortunately, objections never really come up until the closing date, when somebody goes in and does their final inspection. And, it's either 100% great, or we're left with, dealing at the last minute with, they either didn't remove anything from the property, or there's work to be done, or there's, as you guys know, there's a whole host of things that can happen on final inspection. So we try our best to deal with you guys as realtors and the clients, and come up with the information. And I guess to us, you guys are our eyes on the ground, because we don't go to the final inspection. We don't see what's going on, but I usually tell people, take pictures of what's to be objected to, whether it's a missing stove. So I want to see the hole where the stove was at. I want to see what's broken. I want to see the holes in the wall. I want to see whatever it is that we're objecting to, so that we can send it along. Pictures speak 1,000 words. So it's nice to actually see what it is we're objecting to the other side, and it makes a bigger impact, because um, sometimes, especially, I'll just throw this out there, on an accident injury, the guy that hit you is going to say, "Oh yeah, there was a little scrape," and then you pull forth the picture where the whole side of the truck was demolished. Makes a big impact. To have pictures. So we just kind of throw that out there for our clients. Most times they do, sometimes they don't, but I do like to see what we're dealing with. And keep in mind, we can't deal with the other side personally in terms of the client. We can only contact the lawyer. We're really not supposed to contact the other realtor. So that's where we rely on you guys to deal with the other realtor. And sometimes the objection can get cleared a lot faster between you guys talking to each other, than coming back to us, who then talks to the other lawyer, who then talks to the other realtor, who then talks to the other client, and back and forth. So we appreciate the connection that we have with you guys, because it kind of is circular from start to end of the deal. So it's really helpful when we're all on the same page. And I wanted to mention as well, I know it's not up to you guys to provide commission statements. I just had a bit of a scare on one not that long ago. We got a commission statement prior to closing from one of the realtors, but they only told us half of the story. Luckily, we hadn't released any money and didn't plan on for a few weeks, and then ended up getting, I think it was the next week, the commission statement, the correct commission statement, including both commissions. And we still had the money in trust, but had we released money, that would have been a really serious issue in terms of, not having the money in trust anymore. So I usually follow up for commission statements before the due diligence is even finished, just so that I know that I'm going through and I've got my little checklist and I'm checking off, got this, and this. So we like to get them in as soon as we can. Again, I know as you guys as realtors, that's the office does that. And in terms of you guys, I don't have any problem. Just kind of noting some of the things that we've seen coming through. I did want to mention as well on lenders. We're seeing more and more of the unconventional lenders, which is creating a file this thick, now this thick. And we do basically whatever the client wants, whoever they're dealing with, that's who we're going to proceed with and deal. We don't refuse a client because of the bank that they chose or was chosen for them. They're looking for the best deal, and it's your money, spend it wisely. So I just wanted kind of throw that up there. One of the big things I mentioned earlier is that tax bills are now required, so make sure that we've got those in. I've gotten some cases where it's gotten past the broker and the lender is holding us out on the closing date saying, I don't have a tax bill, and we're trying to track down the vendor's lawyer who, we still haven't received the tax bill, and it's the day of closing and we can't get our money out of the bank. Just a tip to get that as a sort of a standard section. I think it's on your agreement already. And sometimes I'm noticing that there's better rates at the conventional banks. So I've been starting to ask clients, why have you dealt with this particular bank? And in some cases, I was kind of surprised at the results. I actually had an employee of the bank not deal with their own bank. And some of the answers I'm getting back is traditionally it used to be because people had bad financing, bad credit scores. That's not the case anymore. In some cases, the conventional banks have refused them because they're getting pickier on what they're accepting. I had one guy that was doing a construction renovation, and it was more advantageous for him to go with one of the unconventional banks in terms of how the money was being issued and the holdbacks and the advances. So there's a whole host of reasons why people are using these, and not to knock mortgage brokers, they're doing their best to get the best deal for their client. If you're looking for a broker, I usually tell people, just give me a call and I'll point you in the right direction. And so Angelique, did you have anything you wanted to throw in here?
Covering it all.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going too fast. I hope not. I'm just kind of going off the top of my head, but I do have an agenda here too that we're working on. So, and again, not to suggest that you guys aren't doing some of these things. I'm just throwing them out as to over the course of the last 39 years. I say that and I kind of cringe going, where did it go? Because I can still remember my first day walking into the office as a newbie. So it's been very busy. It's been very, you need to have lots of energy, and you definitely learn on the fly, which I'm sure you guys are doing too, in terms of some situations. I never say, knock on wood, that we haven't seen something before, because we've never seen it all, because there's always new things coming up and new everything out there, and agreements, purchase and sale, and deals are of no exception. And one other thing I wanted to, now this is not in relation to agreements, but I wanted to show you guys the new ortho layer. So I'm just going to show you the property online map. We did the property online training before. So this is just an example of your property online. When you go to your map, here's your LR shading. So you'll see some of it's turned pink. It's already land registered. I'm going to put the place names on, which in this case hasn't really shown anything different, but you'll see the property. Here's the building with the ortho layer. We see the
can't see your
actual
screen.
building. You can't see my, oh, you know what?
Yeah, we need just at the
So-
bottom, if you want to try to share it, that'll be the best way probably to do it. I think
Yes.
it's open, but we can't
I
see.
apologize.
Yeah.
I apologize.
okay.
I forgot all about that. Let me just get back here.
I think if you click the little screen at the top, Lisa, just that one, yeah, pop it
This
open.
one.
Yep.
And
And then share. the little
share.
green
Here
one.
we go, right here. We are going to share.
We're gonna share the one that has Zoom.
I'm going to
Yeah.
share that one. Okay, is it?
And then press share down at the bottom. There we
You
go.
are screen sharing.
Yep.
Okay, so I am going to go back now to get out of there. Oh, get past this. I have it over here, but it's hidden behind my bar. Just 1 second.
Oh, there you go. Just
Did you
press
get it?
okay. There we
There we go. Okay. So here is the property online map that you would see when you open up your map. Adding the LR shading shows you the pink as who's land registered. The place names, in some cases, more so urban areas, are going to show you more on there. So you see the building on the property here now. So it's just the block of land. The ortho layer is going to show you more of a real time.
Satellite image, it feels like Google Maps almost.
Yes, yeah, more like a Google map. So I did email to ask what date these were done as of, just so we have an idea how up to date they are. I didn't get a response back on that yet. And in some cases, I've noticed that the ortho maps, I think they're saying they're a little bit more accurate, and they are in terms of a view, but I wouldn't rely on these either as opposed to a survey. I did my own property and it's not right. So I do have a survey of my property, so I do know where the property lines are, and the ortho layer is, and the LRO lines are not correct. So just a tip, don't rely on them. The other thing is if the ortho layer is not clickable on the side, to zoom out, down on the bottom here of your map is a zoom link. Just zoom out 1 or 2 to get you out a little bit more. I don't know why it works like this, but it won't work on a close-up view, which is unfortunate because you can't then zoom in to see a little bit more on the property. So I wanted to throw that out to you just sort of as a follow-up on our property online session. But this does matter. And actually, I've noticed that from the non-ortho layer to the ortho layer on some properties, I've actually picked up other buildings, which, given the date, would be nice to know as to whether there's been new additions or things tore off the property that are valuable to know. So for the most part, that's more or less some of the information that we like to see when we get agreements, and why we need it. We need to contact the other lawyer. We need to ensure that everybody's complied with their dates. We need to know that holdbacks. The other thing on holdbacks as well, the time period that's listed on the holdback should be, sometimes we'll see within a reasonable time. We like to kind of qualify that a little bit more as to what's reasonable in terms of within 2 weeks of closing, within a month of closing, so that we know we can go back to the other lawyer and say, work's still not done. Can we release the funds to our client to do? Keep in mind, you can even put that in your clause that the heat pump is to be fixed by a qualified contractor with paid receipts at the time of closing within 2 weeks of closing, with $2,000 holdback for a period of 2 weeks. And should the work not be done, the funds can then be transferred to the purchaser to do the work themselves. Keeping in mind, 2 weeks doesn't always work. It depends on what the contractor is telling you. So it's nice when the buyer can move in and the work's done, but sometimes that's not doable. Sometimes contractors are harder to nail down to a time period. So just throwing that out to you. So going off to, I guess, you guys, questions, comments?
I have a question with regards to your review, or lawyer's review, excuse me,
Okay.
on property online. So there's some things that we can see and some things that we can't. So for example, I had a situation once where I didn't see it on property online, but there was an easement, or yeah, it was an easement. And usually, I think, they are registered to property online, but the lawyer was able, excuse me, Dave, the lawyer was able to see it, but I couldn't. So when you guys get the deal, you dig deep into property online, correct? And you can see more than we can.
Yes, we can. And then the registry level can see even deeper than us. And so we've had a discussion about that lately as to we'd like to get some more ability to see what they're seeing that we're missing as well. But in
Right.
terms of two things, if it's a non-land registered property and you're calling it up to look at it, then there's a lot of things that aren't showing
Yes.
there.
Yes, I
So,
realize,
so
yeah.
that may be where you missed it on a
No,
land.
it was actually land registered. That's why I was like, what? Why didn't
Okay.
I see that?
Okay, so on a land registered piece, whoever did the conversion should have noted that on the parcel. However, maybe the easement came later, or it's a new recording, or that's part of what we do when we search. We basically go from the information on the LR parcel. I will sometimes go behind that depending on what I'm looking for, but that's part of our review is the parcel information correct in terms of the legal descriptions and what should be there. So a lot of times, if you're going to look at the LR parcel, also look at the deed. And if there's something on the deed
Yes.
that's not on the parcel, then that's a tip that the parcel needs to be what we call cleaned up.
Right.
Sometimes, and again, back to the LR training, if you see little stars next to some documents on the parcel or the parcel access is blank, that means that the property could have been subdivided lately. It needs a Form 45 that the lawyer does that goes in and cleans up the parcel and confirms what easements and access and things like that should be on the parcel. But you're right, it should be there. I'm assuming the lawyer you were talking to, was that the purchaser's lawyer that found it and it wasn't
Yes.
showing? Okay, yes.
Yes.
So that is part of the due diligence that we do, is go through that and figure out if there's anything missing there. And sometimes it's even a matter of talking to the clients and finding out that something's not registered, but it's there. There's different rules for unregistered easements. Nova Scotia Power has overriding interests on some properties, but lately they will not touch foot on your property without a recorded easement. So things are coming forward better for future in terms of what's showing up. But there have been some times where we know there's an easement, or the other thing is if you're on a private lane and there's no easement on your deed, you've basically got a landlocked property. So one of your objections on closing is you want the right of way to your property that you're buying, that just goes down 1,000-foot road. You need to have the access to that road. So sometimes it's an easement that needs to be added to the parcel that doesn't exist prior.
Oh.
Yeah, so there's kind of a host of things that we can find when we're doing the search, and sometimes it's the legal description doesn't match the parcel in terms of what's showing on each.
Right. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Angelique? Thoughts?
You got it.
Okay, hope I didn't go too fast.
I think we were on the same wavelength.
Same wavelength on our end. But we just want to make sure we've got everything there. So a lot of times we'll actually select off things on the agreement that we're not sure of. The tax bill is a given now, the water test is a given. I know survey's not specifically listed on the agreement. It's kind of more included in the title. Financing, we pretty much always select that off. Deposits, of course, I'm kind of the old school where we remember $500 was a good deposit, but nowadays we're seeing just about anything. On the vendor's end, the more money you can get, great. It doesn't go in your pocket until closing, but on the vendor's end, on the buyer's end, you like to pay as least amount of deposit as you can, just in case the deal goes south and gets terminated and you can't get your money back. So different stories on deposits on that end. Lawyer review, again, we try not to, make mountains out of molehills in terms of the agreement, unless something really needs to be changed. And big thing for us, the client information, the other lawyer, the agreements, and copies of everything that you have. Just ship it over, whether it's tax bills, surveys, anything that you're getting in can help us to get the deal done faster for our client. So anyway, that's pretty much it on our end. Unless you guys had anything else that you wanted to mention, then we're good to go.
I just have one more kind of question, or
Yep.
I guess it's question. So, so you're saying about the tax, that you're thinking that it should be included in, the buyer's conditions, or
The
a lot-
vendor's condition for a copy of the tax bill to be provided.
Oh, for them, okay,
Yeah.
but not, okay, that
Yeah.
makes sense, because a lot of
Yeah.
times now, and I love it, when people already have all, like, sellers agents, or on the listing already has that information, like in the document, so we have it, so it's not, we don't need to ask for it anymore. Or
Yes.
our condition is not based on that we like the taxes anymore.
Well, I guess that's part of the agreement is that tax bill a condition for both the vendor and the purchaser? It should automatically be on the vendor. The purchaser, of course, wants to know what the taxes are before they
Yes.
buy the property, because in some cases, the
Their
tax
lender
bill could
wants
be
it.
their lender wants it, but they could also find out that, hey, I'm paying $5,000 for taxes that I didn't know about. And now I can't buy the property. So that's part of research that people should be doing. Or I mean, I'm not sure, I guess, question back to you guys. When you're listing the property, are you aware of what the property taxes are, so that when the buyer says, what am I looking at paying here? Is that something that you guys look into on your end, or is that just depending on what the vendor is giving you?
Both, actually.
I
So
calculated.
if we have the
Okay.
tax, and then usually I'll go into PVC, but the taxes are going to change anyway as soon as the
Yes.
customer buys it.
Yeah.
So some people think, well, it's going to be more anyway.
Exactly. That's part of our opening letter to our client on the whole transaction. And one of the clauses in there deal with property assessments that are definitely going to increase. And in terms of decreasing, that sometimes happens, and we don't get a lot of feedback afterwards, whether I'm pretty sure people are getting upped on their tax bills. I'm not sure how it works on getting them lowered, whether you need to appeal them at the end of the year or not. I think it's pretty much automatic to have them increased, but I'm not really sure on the decrease end.
I've never heard of them decreasing, but that'd be a nice little bonus for someone.
Yeah, if you're buying a vacant piece of land that had a building on it and the building was torn down, you may be still assessed on the residential house on the property.
Oh, right.
So it's just something to kind of, we throw out lots of little things for people just to keep an eye on going forward, and in terms of appealing your taxes. And hopefully it just comes down to, making a phone call and letting them know. But sometimes it's an actual appeal, which you only have that 10-day period at the end of the year to do.
I've appealed
that
over
question.
9 of my own houses, and I've had them decreased about 6 times.
Nice, nice. Yeah. And a field, that's interesting, because if it's clear cut, you're obviously not in CBRM, are you?
I'm in Halifax, but
Okay,
I have
different
a-
taxing authority. And so, and not to pick on CBRM, but I know in some cases that clear cut field would be residential, full assessment for residential housing, as opposed to a resource, because it's now clear cut and able to be built on. But the rules in Halifax would be different than another county.
Antigonish is similar to Cape Breton, and they tried to do the same thing, but
Yes.
that land has been reduced as well.
Okay.
I was behind.
Okay.
I was
Good. That's good to know. And it may be kind of sweeping across the province as well. So you may see it eventually catch up to HRM. I don't know, but it's not really been a sort of a public um, information session. It just kind of happened down here. And then we got wind of it through clients that were calling and asking us information. So I didn't know it was in Antigonish as well. So that's interesting.
Hi, Lisa, I have a question.
Yes.
I was behind 2 years for 2 years,
Does your-
65 acres.
Does your law firm recommend to all buyer clients if they have the land they want to buy, survey before they close on the deal?
We will recommend you both legal survey and also title insurance. I find clients coming from the States will mostly take both because I think they're more used to getting sued down there. Let's not go across the border in conversation, but in terms of when you ask your lawyer for advice or information, we're always going to suggest that you do the survey. And the title insurance is mostly mandatory now from the lenders. So there's not really a choice on title insurance. The survey, you do have a choice, but it's always nice when you're buying to know where your boundary lines are. Sometimes it's not feasible because that property may be 30 acres and I wouldn't want to have to pay the survey amount for a 30-acre piece for someone to cut out the lines and do the survey work. Would be quite expensive, keeping in mind that here a city size lot might be somewheres around, I'm going to roughly say about $1,000 just for a location certificate. I'm seeing bills coming in right now for full boundary surveys of about 2,000, 2,500, maybe at the lowest 1,800, 1,900. It just depends on the property, the area, and the surveyor. Most of them are pretty much consistent.
Yeah.
But that depends. So when you look at a 30-acre lot, you're looking at a lot more money to do that. There is a government service that I recently became aware of that they can do a I'm going to call it more of an aerial GPS survey. It's not available to the public, of course, but they buy and sell a lot of land and they can do their own survey work. And I'm not sure what particular area of the government uses this, but they can go in and not even set foot on your property and do the survey work. Whereas as residential homeowners and buyers were hiring surveyors that are going out to the property. There was a guy that was doing GPS surveying. I believe he's retired now. I'm not sure if any of the ones that are active now are actually using GPS. And if you're familiar with GPS, you have to be good with GPS to know your use and your locations. And I guess the GPS is good to travel in the woods with no matter what, because you don't want to get lost out there, especially on a 30-acre plus lot. But yes, at the end of the day, we will always recommend that you get both, but we can't make you. We can only make you do what your bank tells us that is required, mandatory for them to give you the money.
The difficulty in our marketplace is that the surveyors are so busy.
Mhm.
Getting a
Yeah.
survey done may take a long time, and that could affect the closing of the transaction.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of people will go with the title insurance instead. So maybe a little tip on title insurance and survey is that if we survey a problem and find a problem prior to closing and get title insurance, that survey issue is not covered. It's a known defect. If we take the title insurance, buy the property, survey it sometime in the future and find an issue, you may be covered depending on what the issue is because you now have title insurance. And I'm not suggesting that you never get a survey because it's nice to know where you're planting your fence at, where your house is at. But for instance, if you find out later that your house is encroaching on your neighbor, you then call up your title insurer and say, I've got a problem. I've just got my survey done. This was not known before I bought it. They will actually come to the lawyer and get a copy of the file to make sure it wasn't known. And then they will go in to the records. They will actually deal with the neighbor in terms of buying that part of the property for the encroachment from the neighbor so that that is fixed up. So two-sided sword there. You either want to know what the issues are before closing, or you've got coverage, or you've got both. I guess that's a three-sided sword. So it's not always cut and dry as to what the answers are in terms of which lender we're dealing with. But for the most part, we will always recommend that you get both, and then it's up to you to decide. We actually have clients waive an actual survey waiver form that says, I'm waiving getting a new survey on closing.
One more question.
Yep.
With respect to the 408 waiver, let's say that a clause was not waived in a 408 waiver.
A clause is a unit.
Pardon me?
I think AI took over for a second.
So my machine must have thought she heard Alexa and she started answering you. Sorry.
Okay. So,
That was cute.
yeah, okay. So something was omitted, not deleted in a 408 waiver. And both the buyer and seller don't want to terminate. They want to keep the deal alive. But the brokerage is saying, no, the deal is terminated. Can the two lawyers get involved and do something that will save this deal from termination?
The lawyers often get involved in similar ways, and we can have, we just did one similar where we had the client do an acknowledgement that said they're acknowledging that they've waived either all of, or if it comes down to a certain condition, that they've waived that, and we've had the client sign it, the lawyer sign it, and send it in. And I think, as far as I know, that satisfied the conditions because we did close the deal. There's lots of things that we can do on our end, and we again like to keep the realtor involved because we're all sort of a unit on a deal, so we like to make sure everybody's collaborating together. And so sometimes in terms of extensions, we can extend with the other lawyer without getting an amendment. However, the more and more we're dealing with banks, the more we're finding they want an actual amendment. So typically, yes, we can do an extension, we can do a waiver, we can do whatever needs to be done, but sometimes the lender wants it to come on a realtor form. It just depends on the lender that you're dealing with, but we can certainly do that. And your question, we did have that lately, and we were able to get the client to confirm. I guess the scary part of that is if you're then dealing with a vendor who had another better offer on the deal, is that a way out for him to say, hey, I'm out of here, I can get more money from somebody else? Or for the buyer at the last minute to say, oh, I kind of changed my mind, I want this other property that came up, and now can that then be used by them in terms of getting out of a deal? So that's what we're always scared about in terms of extensions and stuff. And one of the ones we're always careful about is extending is financing, because we've had a few times a buyer get an extension on financing and then terminate the deal because they were already expired on financing, but then they asked for an extension because they didn't want to get sued afterwards. So they say, well, let's extend it and then we'll expire, then we'll terminate. So there's all kinds of different little loopholes that happen through the years, but we're all going for it in good faith in terms of an agreement that we want to get the deal to the best position and best outcome, of course, is closing at the end of the day. So we do our best to make sure that we're checking our boxes and making sure everything is done on time besides that.
Great.
Anybody else? Agreements, clauses, objections, you name it, even not related.
Have you ever looked at a piece of land and both parcels that back on each other have been surveyed by two different surveyors and they come up with different lines?
Yeah, unfortunately, and I'm thinking of a road, actually my own road, that the old Cow Bay Road and the new Cow Bay Road has two different locations. So depending on how far back your surveyor goes, that could happen. So one guy's using the new line, the other guy's using the old line. and I believe the old line would be correct because that's when the survey lines were established. That's when the lots were established. So I like to call it, to a certain degree, no man's land, because sometimes you come up with a boundary that's not consistent. Sometimes one surveyor might say, oops, I made a mistake after, it's identified, and then they correct the plan and it's now conforming with the other one. Sometimes they're heard against each other, and I'm right. It's unfortunate, but it does happen. It's not totally uncommon either. There's certain areas in the city that, depending on which way you come up and down the street surveying, your lines will be in a different area. That's where boundary line agreements can come in. Not always does a boundary line agreement work, but that is an option that's available, that if nobody can agree on where the boundary line is and everybody does agree, then we can have a formal boundary line agreement signed and recorded saying, here's where we're agreeing, even though the survey lines aren't the same. We're agreeing that here's where we're going to plot the line at.
The land I'm thinking of is my land in Antigonish. My strip of land is almost identical to 9 other people. And
Okay.
we ran up over a hill to somebody who owns land on the other side of the hill. He surveyed from that side. Most of us have surveyed from our side. And there's a gap. I'm losing about 5 acres
Oh, wow.
in the end of my property. And it's been taken to court, and the judge wouldn't rule on it and declared it no man's land.
Okay, so he's declaring it, we would see that on a map as either subdivision problems or undefined, or there's usually a comment section on a PID. Sometimes they've actually created a PID of those 5 acres and put unknown owner.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they sometimes do these things, and again, I would recommend the 2 surveyors sit down and talk to each other to see how they've come up with the findings that they have, to see if maybe one not convinces the other one, but enlightens maybe the other one to say, oh, I did this, or the other guy did something differently, or I'm not a surveyor, so I'm not trying. Like, we try very hard not to be lenders, insurance agents, or realtors, or surveyors. So we let the professionals do their jobs, but unfortunately sometimes they disagree. And in that case, 5 acres makes a big difference. And then it kind of comes down to, you've been to court, the judge won't agree, you've got no man's land. How do you then agree with your neighbor? Or you think you own the 5 acres, and so now he's saying he owns the 5 acres. So do you split it in 2? Do you each kind of hold steadfast? Do you who's using it, I guess, is another question. Are both of you using the 5 acres?
This is what started the whole thing. The gentleman on the other side of the hill started cutting the woods on the backside of the hill.
Oh, as a
And
newly, as in no one else has done that during the past 20 years, so to speak.
yes,
Yeah,
and
so,
in my lot, it's lined up with 9 other people. So the no man's land has affected every one of us down that line. And I've got the narrowest strip, so I've lost about 4 or 5 acres. Some of them have lost even more. And together they sued this guy, and the judge wouldn't make a ruling. It's crazy.
I wonder, and again, I would get the 2 surveyors together first, to see where they're both taking their information from. You may even need to pull in a 3rd surveyor to kind of look at what the other 2 did, to see what the issue is. I'd ask both of them first what their issue is in trying to identify what the other surveyor did. So you're kind of dealing with the surveyors first, because that's their job. And sometimes it comes down to the legal descriptions. And as much as the registry tries to do away with 1,000 feet to a rock, and in terms of putting GPS locations, that's where legal descriptions nowadays, when they're done, you'll see them in much more detail than they were years ago, from, from a rock to a post to a pond to a, back to the road again. Instead to, exactly 200 feet to GPS location, the north, south, the bounds, the bearings, and then they completely define. Now, that's not to say that, another surveyor doesn't come in and overlap, but to a certain degree, there's a few different answers to that question or options. And one is in terms of deeding, who got the land first, because you can't get what's not there. Another thing would be possessory title, which would be 20 years before the date of the conversion. And so there's a whole host of options and things that we would look at in terms of trying to resolve that. It's not a one answer option, as you can appreciate.
No.
And you've actually been to court, and you're still no further ahead after spending all that money on lawyers and court and surveys and stuff. So it's unique, but not unheard of either.
And
It's
that,
what we hope is uncommon, but it's not uncommon.
and in my case, a lot of my neighbors are older. They're third, fourth generation owners of that land.
Yeah.
And it's like herding sheep. They don't want to spend any more money. They lost, it was
Yeah.
always there. And it was
Well,
all,
they're more or less relying on you probably to go out and fix it. And I guess before your people get older, in terms of once people start dying off, you're losing a lot of knowledge of the area. So you may want to talk to your lawyer about, the use of the property in terms of the ownership, the use for the past. I would go as many years back as you can to confirm that the other party has never used it, and therefore I'm going down the road of possessory title is what I'm going down the road of. And a lot of lawyers don't like to do possessory title anymore because they go on and on and on, and it's a never-ending file, and they land in court, which you've done, and you still didn't get a resolve. So it can be quite expensive to do that. And so I would talk to your lawyer about documenting, and that's just my first thought is I would document everyone's use of their land, and that as far back as you can get. If you can get 20, 40, 60, 100 years back, and then record those, and it gives you a better, there's better knowledge base, but it also, before those people die, you've got it on record. But is there an option to claim? The other party's not trying to claim possessory title, they're trying to claim ownership. But to own property, you have to have been deeded it. So who is deeded it first? There's just a whole host of things we go through in looking at that. Anybody else?
Thank you very much, Lisa.
Oh, you're very welcome. Always happy to chat. Okay, so I guess that's it. I know the session was recorded there, so we usually like to get a copy just so we can share with our team as well, and you guys. And if you have any questions going forward, let us know. And again, wordings and stuff like that, just give us a call and we'll do our best. Always happy to help.
Great.
Have a great day.
Thanks,
Thank
Lisa.
you very much.
Thanks,
Great
Lisa.
session. Thank you.
Bye-bye.